That's going to be Case, University,
Case, University, Tech.
We advocate the United States should legalize the sale of human organs through making the sale of black gender slaves organs legal. This is good for a couple of reasons. A, they see that the discourse is the first way to alleviate things like ontology. It opens up other forms of subversive knowledge in order. It's on this debate space. It's also a question of who has access to talking in the first place. There's a reason why this is reason to start furniture arguments that black individuals who occupy themselves inside the institution are devoided of ever speaking, which is why we're always left wondering why the chair is speaking. Also, institutions were hyper visible. This is why our bodies, even though black bodies are inside the institution, access is still limited, which is why our speaking allows us to create a reevaluation of the way in the way in which value necessarily is prescribed into the black body. The black body is also a form of survival pedagogy because it allows for us to accept it's a form of enactment of counter memory. It's a way for us to accept the hauntings. It allows for us to stitch the movements between the past, the present, and also the future. This is why this type of knowledge allows for us to open certain forms of spaces for not just black women, but also for black communities in general. It's also a question of the oddity of the selling of legal organs in the first place. There's a question of whether why is the black body, why is the gender black slave illegal, the organs illegal in the first place. There's a reason why we have to affirm that type of narration or fiction of Toni Morrison in the first place. That you extend across our mental evidence is pretty good. It indicates that in the status quo that fiction is good because it blurs the line between things like what is real and what is true. It allows for us to move in the in-between spaces. The Middleton indicates that liberatory thinking starts in this space. It allows for us it informs the lens through which we strive towards things like hope and survival. And it's the reason why you should prefer that piece of evidence. Also, our book evidence is pretty clear on the type of value that is already determined for the black body in the status quo, which also indicates that the type of value is interpolated for the black body, which is necessarily what the one in the entire negative position does. It over-identifies the identities that blacks are allowed to fashion for themselves in the first place, which is an impact in of itself. They've not answered our neo-slavery impact, which indicates that black women have targets on their back and their organs are being audited right now, which is why we have to have a type of investigation of the type of thing. They've also not really answered the permutation argument, which I'll probably answer here, is that the 1AC was already in intersectional analysis. The way in which class necessarily happened is prescribed to the black body. Now, I don't think the 1AC does it, or the negative does a pretty good job of understanding our white evidence, which is pretty clear. It indicates that even poor whites have an advantage over individuals like poor blacks, which is why a dismissal of things like racist colorblind in and of itself, which is probably a clear impact, which is the reason why the 1AC necessarily discarded race in entirety. It indicates that we must always put class as priority, which is why the 1AC was always universalizing, which is why it will never ever start the discussion off with race, which is why it's important for us to start this discussion off with race, because if we don't talk about Stephanie, if we don't talk about the black square between her thighs belonging to her, then we will, as long as her body's illegal, then nothing will ever belong to her, which is what Nicole talked about in the first place. And this is why we also have to look to, in the context of things like slavery, it talks about how the relation in Missouri has the effect that it has. This is a great place for us to start looking at the history and ways in which the gender slave started operating in the first place. Now, go to capitalism first of all. They're not answering the argument about how class can never be a single part of the discussion, which is why it's universal and why it's bad, because it only creates a product value. It indicates that everyone should have the same type of subjectivity, and that always excludes the black body, because the black body is an object. Our looping evidence is pretty good on that. It indicates that it goes to social figure, which allows for us to talk about is the precise crucible hegemonic principle by which we should debate this round. You should also look at it through ontology, which is good because it allows for the ghost is always with us. It is always with us no matter what, which is why the 1AC is in an accepting or a confrontation with the haunting, which has to happen in the first place. Now, they don't have impacts of things like extinction because they've only indicated that the entirety of this the link debate is ideas of placing race and gender and class above each other. This doesn't make any sense because there's no impact to this. If our argument is that race going first is important because of racial culture is try or die for the affirmative, because our mental evidence indicates that black women of color right in order to be remembered in a world that is trying to unremember them in the first place, which is what our impact is. It indicates that we must preserve black culture at all costs or risk extinction. Now, they have indicated that organ sales is also bad because, but they have not. They are saying that our 1AC was bad. They're saying that subversiveness is bad. They're saying that no matter what, knowledge will be consumed. That doesn't matter because as long as it is interpolated good by the black community, then it doesn't social structure that necessarily happened. And you've also conceded that it's about the conversation. It's about the things that we gain from that conversation, because nothing about what I see necessarily produces any type of change. Also, you say things like young because it talks about racial oppression. Look, our voting evidence is pretty clear. It talks about how no matter how they are perceived, but when they see it talks about how the black community is interpolated by everyone but itself, which is why we have to legalize the oddity of selling the black organs in the first place, which is why all of your arguments about structural violence and how race is pushed under the rug is only in the context of the negative, because they are saying that, hey, we should talk about race a little bit later, but forget let's talk about class. In the meantime, they have no impact, so they have not outlined what the alternative does. They have conceded the performance of the way they see. There's nothing that they can get up and say, because they don't have an impact claim. They've said that they can't explain the alternative. They said that they should reject notions of class, but I don't understand how they have done this in this space, and I don't understand how they alleviate forms of ontology. Now, you think police is good, and it's a way for us to free ourselves, and it's a way for women of color to find liberatory action. I think you should vote affirmative at the end of this day. I don't think they have an impact inside this space. And now, also, our performance is necessarily good because it's a making of how we discuss things like ontology in the first place. It also allows us to come to terms with things like material violence in the first place. It also allows for us to talk about the violence that happens to the black slave in the first place. It opens a space so we can start stories about the black woman, which is why affirming that narration in fiction is good. I still have 57 seconds, right?
That being the end.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't know.